Okay, so we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Lions Lounge Lockdown, episode 31. The first ever goal scorer at the New Den. John Kerr, thanks for joining us, John.
Thanks, Dan. Great to be here.
Over the moon, mate. You're on the show. As I say, we usually cover Millwall careers in this show, but let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to the very beginning of John Kerr's existence, because you're an American international, but via some other waters, so I hear.
Yeah, so my parents are from Glasgow,
Okay.
and they grew up in a town called Govan, which is right near Rangers Football Club. But the big kind of story from my parents' beginning is they lived in the same town as Alex Ferguson.
Okay.
And my father started playing football as a 17-year-old with Partick Thistle Nil, as the comedians in Glasgow, Billy Connolly, calls them. My father played in high school, Govan High, with Alex and his brother Martin, and Martin was on the same team at Partick Thistle. And I got a chance to see Fergie about, 5-6 years ago in Philadelphia. And I brought some of the paraphernalia from those days, and I showed him a picture of the team from 1963. And he knew them all except for one. He was going through Chalmers, Smith, Jones, Jeffers. And there's one that I said, it's underneath. He goes, I know, but I want to figure it out. So he's that competitive, even trying to figure out pictures. So, I have some great stories of my parents growing up in Govan. It was a rough town, shipbuilders' little town. And I've taken my kids there, just kind of show where we come from, us Kerrs.
Yeah.
And my father's mother got a chance to immigrate to Canada back in the early 60s when they were paying, Scots people to go there. So she took the opportunity, and my father ended up moving back after his first year at Partick and explored the opportunities in Canada to play soccer. And there were, plenty of them. So he came back to Scotland, asked my mother if she wanted to go to Canada. And she said, absolutely, get me out of here, because it was so freaking cold in Glasgow. So they immigrated over, and I was born a couple of years later. And my father luckily had a pretty long career. He started at Partick Thistle and then went to Canada and started there in kind of the semi-pro leagues. And then he got an opportunity to go in 1968 to Detroit. So we went down to Detroit, and then the next year went down to Washington, D.C., and spent 2 years there with the Washington Darts. And then he got a chance to join the New York Cosmos in 1972. So we moved up to New York, and I was 7 at the time. And he was playing his best football, and got a chance to, they won the national tournament, so the NASL championship. And in that final game, they had a couple of scouts from Mexico in the stands, and they were watching a player, or wanted to watch a player that ended up being injured, didn't play in the final. But my dad had a really good game. So after the game, they approached him and said, we're a couple of Mexican scouts, and we'd like you to come to Mexico to play for Club America. Wow. Which was the biggest club in Mexico. And so he went from playing in New York in front of 2,500, 3,000 people to 120,000 people the following couple of weeks in Mexico City. So that was a chance for me as a young kid to really feel what it's like to play in a soccer crazy country. Because I, didn't really grow up in Toronto or in Glasgow. I just bits and pieces here and there as a young kid. But this is a chance to when I was in the full football culture. And going to Mexico had an unbelievable influence on me because, as you know, they play football all the time, just like they do in England and Scotland, etc. Before school, any break during school, lunchtime, middle afternoon break, after school, you play at the school. And then when you go home, they're playing in the park. You're playing with 20-year-olds, you're playing with 15-year-olds, you're playing with 8-year-olds. And for me, it just introduced me to the game, and I fell in love with it. And I got to go to all my father's games, and standing on the field with 120,000 people. Oh my goodness, it just seemed unreal. Got to play in a halftime game, and I was obviously one of the youngest kids playing, and the ball was coming across the line, and I nipped up and I just got my toe and I slid and I scored and I thought I won the World Cup and all the 120,000 people were screaming and I thought I had just died and gone to heaven. So it was a great experience for a young lad at 7 years old to be in Mexico. We were there for like 2 years, and then he came back to New York. And another great story, the following year, in 1975, it was the year when the great Edson Arantes do Nascimento joined the New York Cosmos, otherwise known as Pelé.
Yep, Pelé.
So my dad was a player and assistant coach to a lad from Newcastle called Gordon Bradley. And so I got a chance to meet Pelé and be in his presence and watch training and be a ball boy. And wow, I thought again, I died and went to heaven in those, period of 3 or 4 years. So obviously it gave me the craving to continue in the game and get better. And the next year, my dad got traded to Washington, D.C., the Diplomats, and he played with another famous coach and former player from Manchester United, Dennis Viollet, from the 50s and 60s of Manchester United. And I think he led the Premier League or the old First Division in scoring on several occasions back then. Well, so he told us anyway. So, again, I've been exposed to, as a young lad, so many opportunities with the game, and so grateful my father played, and he retired in 1977. So I grew up the rest of my life in Northern Virginia, and decided to go to college. That was the kind of thing for an American kid to do, to go to college, and I got recruited by the same school that I'm coaching at now, Duke University, which is I feel so lucky because it's a great school academically, great sports tradition, and we were able to win the national championship in my senior year. So from there, I was able to pursue a career in England, and how I did it wasn't the normal call somebody up and get a trial. It was I went to England. I spent my last semester at school here at university as a semester abroad. So I was studying in London and got fixed up with a trial with a team called Harrow Borough, just outside London.
Yeah.
And one of my dad's mates used to play for him, his English mate, and said, "Yeah, can you come down and have a go?" So I went, and the manager didn't believe whoever was calling on my behalf. He didn't believe that I, as an American, wanted to play English football. He said, "American football?" So he didn't believe it. But then he gave me a try, and I went out there, and I think he was impressed. And so luckily for me, I did quite well, and they got me in the first team, and we started winning. And as you know, there's a scout everywhere you go in England, whatever level there is, there's somebody watching. And so it kind of got out there that a few football clubs were interested, like Crystal Palace came to watch me play, Portsmouth came to watch me play, and even Liverpool came down to watch me actually play for Portsmouth reserves against Crystal Palace.
Okay.
So luckily for me, the scout at the time was a guy named Peter Osgood, who you guys know, who was a legend at Chelsea and played for England. And he was also the youth team coach down there. And when I went down for a trial, I played in this game against Crystal Palace, and I did quite well. We won 1-0. I scored the goal. And as soon as I was walking off the field, an England manager, or former England player, was the manager, Alan Ball, in his squeaky voice said, "Son, come on, meet me in my office, please." So I went into the office, sat me down. He said, "Son, we'd like to sign you." I said, "Fantastic." So I went in, and within 10 minutes, I was signing. I want to sign with Portsmouth. So went back to London, finished my schooling, and joined the team in pre-season. And that was the year they got promotion from the second division into the first division. But I played with Vince Hilaire, and one of my close friends is still to today is Paul Mariner, Vince Hilaire, Kenny Swain, Noel Blake. And then they had a big center forward, Mickey Quinn, was playing center forward. Mickey Quinn, who ate all the pies.
Big Mick. He scored a lot of goals for Newcastle.
Yeah, he did. Coventry and Newcastle. Yeah, he scored a lot of great. And he's what a great guy. One of the great stories. that Mickey Quinn. We were on the locker room, and Alan Ball came into the locker room, and he had the same haircut for many, many years, and all of a sudden he had one kind of pulled back like mine, all back. And Mickey Quinn said, as he walked into the locker room, he said, "You got a new bike, Gaffer?" And everybody was rolling, because obviously when you're rolling down on a bike, your hair gets pushed back, and oh my God, everyone was crying. Even Alan Ball was brilliant about it. So that's when I really understood the great sense of humor the Brits had, and you have to come and you have to deal with it, and you can't be exposed to it. My first appearance in the Harrow Borough locker room, I walked in, and one of the lads started singing, "I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy, dee, 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 dee." So they want to put you on the edge to see how you handle it, and luckily I have a good sense of humor. Sink or swim, yeah. So that's kind of my beginning from transferring from being a youth American and growing up in the U.S. and then transferring over to England. And in that period, I actually got into the national team program. I actually tried out for the under-17s for Canada, and a guy named Barry McLean, an English guy, didn't like my style and didn't pick me. So, I grew up in America in that system, so they knew me. And then I finally got my citizenship, because I was a Canadian for 18 years, and I was able to get my American citizenship. And that next year, I was invited to play for the full national team, actually under 20s for a couple of games, and then I got pulled into the under a full national team with the U.S. as a 20-year-old. Brilliant. Which was pretty cool.
Yeah. So how did you end up getting to Millwall in the end?
And then, so it's funny, because I had a year with Portsmouth, and then something terrible in my own life. My mother was really sick, so when I went to Portsmouth that year, when I was coming back in the summer, my parents didn't tell me. My dad didn't tell me because he didn't want me to come back earlier. My mom was dying with cancer. Oh, wow. So when I got back, it was just a matter of time. And I wasn't in a place, I'm an only child, so I was really close to my mother. I wasn't ready to come back and play. And it was interesting, because during that period, a guy named Jim Kalman was the manager of Wycombe Wanderers, and they were playing in the conference league at the time, kept in touch with me for whatever reason. But my mother's being Scottish, we went back together to Scotland, and I trained a little bit at Rangers, because it was right near my house, even though I'm a Celtic fan. Got to make that clear. But I trained a little bit with Rangers, and I actually know who was the youth team manager. Jimmy Nichol was the youth team manager at the time when I was there, and what a great guy he was. Fantastic. So anyway, my mother passed in October, and then I moved back down to London and played with Wycombe that following year, and had a really good time there.
Scored a lot of goals for Wycombe in a short space of time, didn't you?
I did, yeah. We had a good team. Steve Guppy was one of the guys I was keeping out of the squad at the time.
Wow.
And then another, there was a big center forward that was with Southend, I believe, and then played for Manchester United in Coventry. Big guy, center forward. I was keeping him out the team at the time.
Just want to point out as well, I think at this point, were Wycombe Wanderers non-league?
Yeah, they were Vauxhall Conference, trying to get into the.
Now they're in the same division as Millwall. We've come a long way, but back then,
I know, right?
Yeah, they was.
That's funny about that. I've been in touch with the chairman, is an American guy, and all the clubs that I played for have an American owner. Millwall, obviously John Burleson, and then Peter is the manager. Keurig is the manager of Wycombe, and then the Pompey manager is the guy from Disney. And I'm trying to think what other club. Peterborough, I think, has an American owner. And I played for them for 2 months on loan when I was at Portsmouth. So it's amazing, from going to England when nothing was an American, not a player, not an owner, nothing. And then now all of a sudden, the amount of Americans playing in Europe is improved dramatically. And now obviously ownership and now even coaching. And there's a general manager that's it's at Barnsley. The name escapes me, but he's the manager, what do they call him? The GM or the sporting director?
That's right, yeah. Director of football,
of Barnsley. He's an American lad that I actually coached when he was a young guy. Oh, wow. And he's doing great there. Well, he kept him up anyway, right? They stayed up at the death. So it's interesting that, as Americans, we persevere and we keep on track, and we're going to try to make our way somewhere. And then from how I got to Millwall, So I came back. I was a little homesick. My mother passed away, and then I came back, and I ended up at Duke as an assistant coach, and had a great experience. And I knew at some point in my life I wanted to go back into coaching and coach at university level, but I still had the burn to play. So somehow, I can't remember how, I got in touch with Millwall and Charlton. So I went for trials at Millwall and at Charlton at the same time.
Okay.
And then both of them wanted to sign me for the rest of the season, which was great. And then
You made the right choice, obviously.
I did, right? I did, no question about it. And what happened was they made it easy for me. Charlton, because initially Mick said, I can only sign you to the end of the season. And then Charlton said, I can only sign you to the end of the season, but we want you to play one more reserve game. So I said, okay. I played one reserve game, and I called up the scout from Millwall, Ron. He's such a great guy, Ron. Can't remember his last name, but he came to watch me, and I scored 2 goals. And then after the game, Ron called me and said, do not sign with Charlton. Do not sign to Charlton. I'll be in touch with you. And Charlton right away wanted to sign me right after the game. And I said, no, I'll talk to you tomorrow. But they wanted to give me one more. They wanted to make sure my hamstring was right because I wasn't right. And so that game allowed me to get seen by the Millwall scout, which ended up being a good thing for me. And so it ended up that Millwall gave me a 2.5-year contract, which I was like, well, there's no question who I'm signing with. And I always wanted to sign. I mean, I had the feeling they're moving into a new stadium and things were going up, and they had a lot of good players, good young players. Like Alec Ray was playing, and Jamie Marley, and it was a really good young team. Mandy May ran the show in that little holding position. It was a really fun team to watch, and I could see myself playing in that group. I thought I can really do well here if I'm able to give an opportunity. And that's how I ended up getting an opportunity with Millwall. Was that chief scout? I'll figure out his name and I'll send it to you. But Ron said, "Don't sign with Charlton. Don't sign with Charlton." So, and that's funny because Crystal Palace was interested as well, because they were at the game and they said, "Oh, we want to talk to you." And I'm like, "I want to go to Millwall. I'm ready to go there."
Brilliant. So you signed in 1993, February.
Yeah.
What was your first impressions of the club and your teammates and the old den?
You know what I loved? I loved that, I was in England for 4 or 5 years, and this team really wanted to play football. And they were tough, but they really, really wanted to play football. So again, I was attracted to that because I wanted to play football, attacking, and not just over the top and just lump balls in, because that's not my style. I'm 5'9". I'm not that type of player. But This team wanted to play, and they had the players, and the manager, Mick McCarthy, was all about playing. Get it down and play. Get it to your feet. Get it. Keep moving. Pass and move. Get across your defender. Get in the box. Be aggressive. Close down. Work hard. All these little concepts that I believed in, and I really enjoyed implementing as a player in my own game. And so I kind of felt like I fit into the puzzle of what they were trying to do.
Yeah, you joined the club at, say, it was an absolute vital time in the club's history, just coming off the back of the old ground, going into the new ground. Obviously, we'll get onto that shortly. But you'd been living in London for a while, you said, but it must have been comforting to have big Casey Keller there, a fellow American, in the setup with you.
No question. He was really instrumental and helped me understand what it took to navigate the system there. And he was there only maybe about 9 or 10 months before, but obviously fell into becoming the starting goalkeeper and a fan favorite. And, I knew him a little bit before I got there through the national team program, but not overly. But him and Kristen, his wife, really opened up their doors to me. And having a fellow American there and understanding where you come from was a big help. And so we really enjoyed each other's company. And then we were able to recruit our other friend, Bruce Murray, over a few months later. So it was kind of fun. And then we had a lot of, the Aussies were over, Davey Mitchell and Jason and another striker. I can't remember his name.
Was it Alistair
Edwards? Yeah. So we had a little bit of a foreign contingent. So, for example, when they had the Super Bowl in January, we had a little party at our apartment. Not a crazy one, just the hors d'oeuvres and a few bevies, whatever, but nothing crazy. But we'd have everyone over and all the Americans, and it was a foreign contingent, so it was kind of fun. We had this kind of relationship in amongst the team, and we had a great time. I've spent a lot of time with Keith Stevens and all the boys. I mean, we used to have great nights out and great fun together. And another great story I have for you is one time in training, Keith Stevens fouled me on purpose in training, and he didn't mean to hurt me, but he actually broke my talus bone. I had to go up to London and the next day and get a scan, and it was broken. And it was a bummer because I was flying in training. I was just coming back of a hamstring injury, but we still went out together and had that night out, hopping along. And the next day I had to go get a scan, and I'm walking down the streets of London. I could barely walk. He goes, "You're all right. You're all right, John. You're all right." And I'm like, "No, I'm not all right. I know I'm not all right." So that's, it was a great, I didn't hold it against him. That's just the way he played. And, it was one of those things. He didn't mean to hurt me, but he got me. He definitely got me. So,
there's a brilliant
great
photo.
Guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I don't know if you've seen, there's a brilliant photo of you, Bruce, and Casey draped in the American flag. I think it must be at the training.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one, yeah.
Do you remember that day?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that day, yeah. Yeah, it was great. I think even Mick came over and stood with us.
What was he like for you as a manager, Big Mick?
You know what I liked about him? Straightforward, honest, and he'd always pull you. So if you're in the starting lineup and in the next game you're not going to be in the starting lineup, he'd come and pull you aside and say, I'm not putting you in, this is why, and you just got to keep plugging away and do these things properly and let it continue. So I love that about him. He's honest, and he's not going to pull the wool over your head or play games with you. He's just going to tell it straight. And he's a competitor. You wanted to play for him because he wanted to win, and he wanted you to play your best. He really wanted you to make a contribution and play at your best. And if you weren't, you get dropped or a hammering and in a good way. Sometimes those players need that to get going. And in a competitive world and dog eat dog, you got to step up. And so I really loved him. I thought he was great. And even more, I loved Ian Evans, who was his second man in charge.
That's right, yeah.
And we spent hours upon hours, and I think his leg has fallen off now because he used to serve balls to all of us strikers every day before training. And, with Casey and goal, and it really helped me, a lot of repetition. It really helped me get confident, and in his sense of humor and his confidence in you. He showed confidence in you and said, "Hey, you can do this." And that gave me a great pick me up to do well and to really want to perform. And so that the whole staff, the whole environment, the whole kind of feeling in the club was a real positive. And it was the greatest time in my footballing career because it was the best I played over a longer period of time with some great guys in a real environment that you felt that people cared about you. And not just on the field, it's all the staff, all the people around the edges, the equipment managers and all the secretaries and the tea ladies and everybody else. They all care about you. And even when I go back now to the games once in a while, they all go, they can't do enough for you. So the feeling of the club I have is second to none. I love it. And they do things the right way, and they care, and they're so passionate, and it's awesome. I really, even in the bad times when they used to boo me, I still love them.
Well, I say you joined in February 1993, towards the end of the 92-93 season, the last ever season at the Old Den. A very quick introduction. Do you remember your debut?
I want to say, was that against Luton Town off the bench? Is that right?
Correct. And then after that, that was maybe not such a memorable one. We won the game 1-0. After that, straight into West Ham away. And the game after that, you score against your old club Pompey at the Den. What were those two games like?
Yeah, I do remember that. Being a Millwall player and playing in a derby against West Ham, that was exciting. And I have a cousin that's grew up in that area, and she came to the game with her mother and came to the game, and all her family are West Ham fans. So she was cheering for us as a Millwall person, and, playing at West Ham was a thrill at Upton Park. And we got a good result. I think we tied 2-2 coming back from behind.
That's right.
And it was a great feeling because we needed that result going into the end of the season there.
Mm.
And then obviously playing Pompey, I still had some. Alan Knight was in goal when I was playing, 4 or 5 years before that, and to score against him. And I think they had a real good goal scoring against record. They didn't give up many goals, and to get a goal against Pompey, geez, what a thrill! It was awesome for me personally. It was great.
There's a good photo of you celebrating with the fans, and a player running in just behind you at the time, Gavin Maguire, also an ex-Portsmouth player. We've heard some stories on Mad Gav. What was he like for you as a teammate?
Great. He's the kind of guy you want on your team and not play against him. Oh my goodness. Whenever I was faced up against him, it's like playing Ben Thatcher. Never get a moment's peace. I had to wear shin pads all up the front of my legs and the back.
Full body armor on the below the knee.
Oh, those two guys. And then Terry Hurlock when he came, although he was a little bit more calm in those days, the second time coming around.
Also, while we're on the subject then of lively players, shall we say, everyone seems to have a Pat Van den Hal story as well.
Oh my God. What's funny with Pat is he had a little bit of affection for our wives. So my wife and Casey's wife and the accent, and he was so polite to, when he sees us in the bar and everything. And so he'd come over and say hello to everyone. And my wife would go, oh, he's so nice. He's so nice. And I'm like, he's a friggin' psycho. But again, he is so nice off the field. And my favorite story about Pat on the field, playing Nottingham Forest away, and Bruce Murray won't like the story, but so be it. So we're playing Nottingham Forest away, and Pat just joined the team. And Bruce was playing, I want to say up front, and he didn't know everybody's name. And during the game, he says to Bruce, "Number 7, hey, stop giving the ball away. Number 7. Priceless. Turn the game and those forward. Number 7, stop giving the ball away. Oh, priceless.
Brilliant.
Really.
So yes,
that's my Pat Van den Hal story.
Yeah, mate, it's a great one. It's a clean one, shall we say, on other ones we've heard.
Yeah.
But definitely a character. I'm trying to get him on the show, but I don't think it's going to happen. But so yeah, as I said, you come to Mill at the business end, and you play. Did you play on the very last game at Bristol Rovers? To be honest, I don't really think it matters if you played or not. Just you was there as part of it. And
I was injured actually. Yeah. I was injured that last game, but I was in the stand, and I think I was sitting next to Casey's wife when he got absolutely tackled and stripped. He ran into the locker room naked. So I remember that game. I was injured. I didn't play the last one. But hilarious scenes and memorable, right? The last game ever played at the old Den. Very memorable.
Exactly, mate. Well,
we didn't play well. We got a bad result. We didn't play well, I don't think.
No, 3-0 we lost to Bristol Rovers. But let's talk about something you definitely will remember. We'll move on to the 93-94 season. The new Den opens. You've probably been dining out on this for the last 20-something years. Millwall 1, Sporting Lisbon 2, managed by Bobby Robson, and a young Luis Figo was also in the side that night. But the first ever goal scorer at the new Den. So that is you. What do you remember that night?
Yeah. Well, another player that was a big-time player, being a Celtic fan, was Richard Cadetti, was playing as well up front. And, everyone talks about, what was your objective in that game? And it necessarily wasn't to score the first goal, because I didn't even think about that, what that would entail, or, the label that I get for the rest of my life, which is, I love it. It's a fantastic compliment. Mm. But my goal at that time was just to get in the team and stay in the team. So I had a pretty good preseason. We were in Ireland, where Mick comes from, and we had some good games. I scored a couple good goals and was, getting more confident. And my objective was I got to play well and continue my progress so I could stay in the team. And to score that first goal, I didn't really realize what it would mean in the label for the rest of my life, which is a great one. Because, oh yeah, he scored the first goal, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of cool to have that label. Definitely. So yeah, it was a thrill, and I remember talking to Andy Roberts about it, I thought he played me the ball, but it was our left fullback. Oh my goodness.
Huxford, Richard Huxford. No,
No,
Lee
no, no, the
Luscombe.
left
Lee
fullback.
Luscombe.
No, no, the guy played a long time at Millwall. Little left back, little tiny
Ian
guy.
Dawes.
Ian Dawes. Ian
Yeah.
Dawes. Yeah, I think he played the ball in, or it might have been Lee Luscombe. I can't remember, but it missed out the first defender, and I just had to get in front of the Dutch international defender. I just knew I just gotta, I could hear Mick's voice. Get across the defender. Get across the defender. So I just nipped in front of him, and I took a big kick from him. But what a thrill to score that goal.
Already taken. Neatly switched by Allen for Luscombe. Now it's going to come across, and there's Roberts, and the first goal has been scored by John Kerr. The American has the honour of making history with the first goal ever at the New Den. And fittingly, it's Millwall who score against Sporting Club de Portugal. The free kick had been taken quickly, and eventually when the ball came across, Lemijic couldn't do much about it, especially when Kerr was stationed no more than a couple of yards out.
And 20,000 people there, all the anticipation. And again, for me, the motivation was I want to get in the team the next week and stay in the team. So luckily for me, that worked.
Yeah, well, I was going to say there was a big competition for places in your position that year. I mean, no disrespect, when we signed you, you had Jamie Morley and John Goodman firing on all cylinders at the last year at the old Den. Then the first year at the new Den, you've got yourself, Bruce Murray, Jamie Morley, John Goodman, John Byrne, and also Clive Allen as well. So it was very difficult to force your way into the team, wasn't it?
It was, and you're forgetting one name that you'll remember, and he was a very good player, Malcolm Allen. Cool. So Malcolm Allen got traded during that period at the beginning of the year, or not traded, sold to Newcastle. Right, yeah. So there was a lot of competition for places, and that's why I was so motivated to do well, is because I knew that I'd had to play at my best to have an opportunity. So, I was in really good shape physically. I, did all the running in the preseason, make sure I was fit, and got even stronger in the preseason, scored some few goals. And in that period, the team was flying. The team was playing some good football, and it was exciting times at the New Den.
Well, we finished third, make the playoffs, and we played Derby. I'm not sure if you figured in those games, but obviously we definitely would have been part of and been around it. But what do you remember about that?
Oh, vivid memories. I was on the bench for both those games down the stretch, and it was an interesting time because we were playing well, and we ended up, I want to say, we finished third, as you said, and we're going in with a lot of confidence. But we had a tough time away at Derby. We just didn't get going, didn't play well. And that was a shame because I think we left ourselves too much of a gap. Would we lose 3 or 4-1 in that game?
3.
And then we had to come home and then...
Yeah, 2-0. And then at home, we let it go in early.
Yeah, so there was a big gap that we, a disadvantage. And then when they scored, I want to say they scored first at the New Den.
Yeah. I
think that really ruined our opportunity, and the fans were disgruntled. They were disappointed because the year before, in '92, when I did join, that was a good team pressing for promotion, and this fell off at the tail end.
That's right.
And then we got better, we got more players, and it was disappointing that we lost so early because it was a really good team and great camaraderie, and all of a sudden a lot of players went different directions after that. But that was our big opportunity and one that we missed.
Yeah, it's a shame, mate. I said that a lot of players did go different directions, and the next season, which would have been your last season at the club, the 94-95 season, this was when you really got to see, Ben Thatcher, Mark Beard, Andy Roberts had already been part of it as well, and also Mark Kennedy. What were they like, them young boys, being around them day to day? Was they part of everything that was going, all the jokes, etc., around the training ground?
Yeah, they were fun. They were fun kids, came up through the program. Tom Wally did a great job with them with the youth club, and we were following them. We would go to their games, and they got to the final. I want to say, was at Manchester United?
That's right, yeah.
Lost in the final, I believe. But they had, great personalities, and you knew they were going to make it. Mark Kennedy stood out like a sore thumb. What a talent, and what a nice boy. What a nice young man. And I know he went to Liverpool shortly thereafter, and I know the team split up, and Thatcher went to Manchester City, I believe, and Mark Beard went somewhere else. But great kids, and you knew that they had a big future, and they brought some personality to the group, and it was lively. The training was lively. It was difficult. It was very physical. It was playing at a fast pace. So you had to stay up with it. It was a challenging time, and the team got a good run in the FA Cup that year, beating Arsenal at Highbury. I wasn't on the bench that game. I was in the stand watching, so I celebrated this like all the Millwall fans. But it was really good times at the club, and I really enjoyed myself. It was a great period for the club, and we fell short of maybe some people's expectations, but it was a really enjoyable period.
For you personally, I see you came the back end of the 92-93 season. It's going to be difficult to force your way in at any point there. Then the 93-94 season, there's a lot of strikers at the club. You started out the 94-95 season as the main striker. We started the season well. I think 2 wins from the first 3 and 1 draw. And you score a hat-trick. You come off the bench for Dave Mitchell, an injured Dave Mitchell, and end up putting a hat-trick past Derby County.
I remember very well. It was a beautiful, beautiful day in South London. And coming off the bench early, it was a surprise because Davey must have injured his calf or something. And I was just happy for the opportunity, and I felt good, and I felt I was training well at the time. I just felt I wanted to contribute to the team, and I think it might have been the first game after losing to Derby in the playoffs the year before. So we had a point to prove, and everyone was motivated. And for me, I think I came on and I crossed the ball in for John Goodman, who headed down for Alec Ray to finish for the first goal. And then we were on top of them. And I can't remember if we went. Yeah, we were 1-0 up at halftime, and we came into the locker room at halftime, and we knew that we were playing well, and we felt good about ourselves, and again motivated to get the result. And then again, I just felt sharp. And John Goodman, I've got to give him credit because he took a lot of the focus away from me by taking 2 defenders. He was very active, and he would bring the ball forward and look to dish it at the last minute. And he laid on, I know, one of the goals for me, and was running off the ball. And I think Alec Ray was really in his prime then. He was really, he's a kind of a midfielder that could come forward and cause so much havoc. He could shoot from distance. He could slip you in. And I think I benefited from one of these little deflections, and I just was sharp on it, and I finished it with my left foot. And kind of amazing, I scored 2 goals with my left foot and 1 with my head in that game.
So already a busier half for Keller than he had in the first half. Goodman going all the way. Goodman again, will he get the shot in as well? He tried, it comes to Kerr, and that's the second goal. Just 2 minutes into the second half, and that's a magnificent start for Millwall. Leading by a goal to 0. Goodman tried the original shot, and it broke very kindly for Kerr, who rifled the ball home, giving Taylor no chance whatsoever. Kennedy goes short. It is flicked on by Goodman, and there's the 3rd goal. Minutes into the second half. They worked the corner superbly. Kennedy flicking the ball to the near post, Goodman flicking it on. And a substitute, Kerr gets his 2nd goal of the game. Goodman again. He deserves a goal for the work he's put in today. And look at that beautiful play. Gets it across. That's the 4th goal. And it completes the hat-trick for Kerr. And it's only what Millwall have deserved, especially Kerr, who came on for Mitchell in the first half and has taken all 3 chances superbly.
So it was obviously a good day for me, and I was in and out of the team the rest of the season, and it wasn't a perfect end for me, but I still have such fond memories of that group. And I think what would we finish that year in 95 or 94?
Well, we slipped
We
away.
didn't make the playoffs, did we?
Yeah, no, we slipped away a bit due to the cup run, but that was going to lead me on to the question to ask you was, how did it come about you leaving the club?
Geez, I think it was twofold. It was well known that America, USA, the league was about to start. So we were in negotiations a little bit already, all three of us, although Casey was just starting his career. So the head of the federation from the US came over and met us at the Hard Rock Cafe in London, I want to say in December time, and made it clear that, you know, they wanted to sign us and have us play in the league. And, you know, me being around my early 30s, I thought it would be a perfect time to transition back to America. I have an American wife, just got married a couple of years before, and, you know, go back to where we come from and start this new league and et cetera. So that was in the works. And, you know, I was also coming to the end of I wasn't as I don't know, fit or not fit, but I had a few injuries during my career there, and I wasn't playing my best. And it was probably for the better that, you know, Mick said, look, it's probably not good for you to stay here. You got to move on. And, you know, we both kind of understood that it was time. So I would have loved to have stayed, but, you know, under the circumstances, it was probably the right thing to do. Came back to the States. I played in the new MLS, Major League Soccer, for 2 years, one in Dallas, and I got traded halfway through that season, and I got to play with a famous former Manchester United player, Frank Stapleton, was my manager in New England. Okay. So I moved to Boston and played there for 2 years. And then I became, my contract was finished there after 2 years. And then I was 34 at the time. I got a job coaching a league below the MLS. And I was able to bring a famous Scotsman over to be my assistant, believe it or not. Stevie Nicol joined me as a player coach. And so he and I coached for 2 years together. And as I mentioned before, I was always in the long term wanting to be a coach at university. I just felt that my calling was helping young kids get better, and not just football, but in life. And being around that academic scene was something close to my heart, because I went to an academic school, you know, growing up, and I just felt that was my calling. I could really make some impact with some of these young guys. So came back and I coached those 2 years with the Boston Bulldogs with Stevie Nicol, and then the Harvard University job came open in Boston, and my wife was already the assistant coach for the women's team there. Oh, really? Tracy. And the other story I was going to tell you about Tracy, maybe I should tell you now real quick. So do you know that she played for the Millwall Lionesses? No. My wife.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Wasn't the way you met her though, was she? She came with you already?
No. Well, we got married, and I brought her back, and she played at University of Virginia with John Harkes' wife. And wow. John Harkes' wife, you'll laugh at this. So one Sunday afternoon, myself and John Harkes were sitting in a stand watching our wives play against each other. So my wife was playing for Millwall, and his wife was playing for the Derby ladies team. And it was a great game, 4-3, but the Lionesses won. And so we went home happy. But yeah, so my wife played there for 2 years. So like I mentioned, you know, my wife was the assistant coach at Harvard when that job came open, and mentioned it to the athletic director that I'd be interested if you wanted to consider him. So I was able to get an interview, and then I ended up getting the job, and I left Steve Nicol with the club that I was coaching. Right. And he went on to coach the New England Revolution for 10 years and had a great career. And I still talk to him. I talked to him the other day. He's now doing working for ESPN here with Craig Burley on a regular basis. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so from there, I was at nine years at Harvard University, and then my old school, Duke University. That job came open with my old coach retiring, and I've been at Duke now in North Carolina for 13 years. So very, very lucky. And we have 3 kids, and one of my sons plays for me at Duke, and my daughter plays football at Vanderbilt University. Wow. And I keep saying, you got to go to England and play in the Lionesses. You do what your mother did. So maybe that could be on the cards at some point. And my young son is 15, and he's a good footballer. So I'm going to bring him over at some point because they can play in Britain, you know, being a British subject. So yeah, definitely. Hopefully that comes out at some point in the next few years.
That's brilliant that your wife was a Lioness. So you're at the club at the time. You're at Millwall. You're a pro, and Was they looking for players? And you said, hang on, my wife's half decent.
Well, it's funny. The coach at the time was a guy named Jim Hicks. And Jim Hicks and I played one summer together in my travels 3 or 4 years ago. And I said, hey, Jimmy, my wife plays, and she played at Virginia. And he knew all about the American system, et cetera. I said, yeah, bring her down. So she went to training and she said, yep, signed her right now. So she played with Prue Buckley, who's still with the club, I think. In the youth scene, I think she's still involved with the commercial side.
Wow. And
all the girls back in that 90 period. So they had a good team, and they're good. And my wife played midfield. She was a midfield striker. She could score goals. She scored a few goals for the Lionesses. Brilliant. Yes, it was great times.
Brilliant, mate. Sounds like you really, really enjoyed your time at the club. I always ask at the end, if you could pick one standout memory from your time at the club, what would it be?
Well, it's hard to not be involved in that first goal ever at the new Den. That was a thrill of a lifetime. Obviously, the hat trick is a big one. I think I scored a really good goal. It didn't mean much because we ended up losing the game. One of my favorite goals was away at Tranmere. I came on as a sub, and I want to say Greg Barry played me in on the right, and I was, I don't know, frustrated or angry. I hadn't played as much, and I wanted to really prove myself. And I just got the ball out in front of me, and I hammered it to the back post, in off the post, and it went in. And it was bad because we were making a comeback. We just ran out of time. I think we were getting beat 3-0. John Aldridge scored, and we weren't playing well. And we came on, and we got it back to 3-2. I think Jamie Morley scored in that game. But those times stand out to me, and just being around the fans and the players and the coaching staff, the whole environment, I loved it. I just have so much fond memories of the club and the people, and even when I come back, they're so welcoming. And I went to watch this past winter. I went to watch the youth team play, because I'm saying if there are any smart kids that want to pursue the university level, then let's bring them over to Duke University. And we wear royal blue, so you don't have to switch colors.
The final question I always ask, it is Mill orientated, but more of the off the field antics than on it. If you could tomorrow night, if you could go out with 3 of your old Millwall teammates for one last drink, one last night out, which 3 would you take?
Like apart from Casey and the obvious Bruce and Davey Mitchell, I'm going to go the English side. For sure, Keith Stevens, Rhino, for sure. Back in those days, a guy named Alec Ray was crazy. He was a nut. He's nuts. So I think him, but he doesn't drink anymore. No, and I have to go with my other partner in crime in terms of being a striker was Jamie Morley. What a lad. He was a fun guy to be around. He was what was that show, Only Fools and Horses?
Yeah.
He's like Del Boy. I mean, personality and always up to something. Alan had a deal going on, and had, he was out in the discos, had all things going on all the time. So those 3. So Keith Stevens, Alec Ray, and Jamie Marley.
Brilliant.
My 3 guys.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed talking to you. And as I said, I don't need to congratulate you on it, but you are a part of history, obviously, the first ever scorer at the new Den. So congratulations on that and your time at Millwall, and thanks so much for joining us. It's been brilliant.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it. I'll hope to see you guys again soon.